Hello, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. Kelsey reminded me like a minute before we went on air that that it's Valentine's Day today, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right," because this airs on Monday, and I'm not dressed accordingly. Uh, but Kelsey is. She's got her couple shirt on. Kelsey, how are you doing? How's your shirt?
I've I have some lovebirds on my shirt. For
That's
those of
right.
you who are just listening, I've got my
Hmm.
WandaVision shirt on, so I've got
Very
Wanda
cool.
and Vision happening today in
Nice.
honor of Valentine's Day, of course.
Yes. And
Um,
of course, a big congrats to either the Bengals or Rams for winning because we're recording this pre Super Bowl. This is
right.
airing post Super Bowl. So one of those teams won. Major congratulations to whoever won that one. Or maybe both teams lost. Maybe both got disqualified and we're in for a historic moment.
Are you
Anyway,
rooting for anyone in particular, Dill?
it's tough because
Okay.
going into like 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, whoever wins this AFC matchup between the Bengals and Chiefs is who I'll root for. But of course, because of how that game went, I was like, it was not a very satisfying win. Just being of a Chiefs household here, where my roommate's a diehard Chiefs fan, we have kind of like become a Chiefs apartment because the other team that we root for here, the Giants, are not good at all. So like
Right.
it's like we want to root against the Bengals, but at the same time, like I've never been a huge Rams fan. But again, Matthew Stafford is now a Ram, and he hasn't won one, so it'd be nice to see him. It's funny because people are going to listen to this and be like, it happened." But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I'm team. I don't know. I honestly, this is one where I'd be happy with either outcome. Whereas like in the past when it was like Eagles Patriots, I was like, I'd rather just like die in a hole. That whole
Yeah.
night I was like, I cannot wait for This Is Us tonight because they were airing the big crockpot episode that night. I was like, I'm just waiting for This Is Us. I don't care if the Eagles win or the Patriots win. I hope it's a negative score because I hate both teams. But here it's at least like both teams have merits to winning. I'll be happy with either outcome. But how about you, Kels? Who were you rooting for on Saturday when we recorded this?
Where are the Bengals and the Rams from?
So the Rams are from LA. Well, the Rams are.
Okay.
We grew up with the Rams in St. Louis, but now they are in LA, and
Okay.
the Bengals are in Cincinnati, which is in Ohio.
I don't particularly have hard opinions on either of those cities. Like if it was
Okay.
a city that I don't like, this answer would probably aren't the Bengals like the underdog, or are they both kind of
I,
underdogs?
I don't want to like misspeak, but I believe the Bengals have never won. So and they going into this season like they were not suspected to be Super Bowl champs. No,
So
so
I'm
they
rooting
are
for them.
technically the underdogs. Okay, yeah, there you
I
go.
love a good underdog story.
We love a good
So
underdog story. Speaking of, these Netflix shows have always been the underdog story ever since Disney Plus came out and took over Marvel. And people sometimes forget about these Marvel shows. And one of those shows we're going to be talking about is Daredevil. We did half of the first season recap last week. This week we're doing the second half, episodes 7 through 13. So if you haven't seen those, we're going to spoil them, but feel free to stick around and listen anyway. But Kelsey, I don't know if you have news, but the big piece of news, obviously, is that we found out again hours ago or a day ago that
yeah.
the Marvel series on Netflix are all being taken off of Netflix, and they've not announced whether they're going to Hulu, Disney Plus, or anywhere. But they will not be available to stream, which means our whole schedule, because we were planning on watching all of Daredevil until Moon Knight, just got fucked. So,
Yeah.
any thoughts on that? Like, because right now we're at a hiatus. So after this, we will take a pause on Daredevil. We're gonna recap season 1 here. We're gonna finish that, and then we're gonna wait to find out where these series are gonna land because we would hate to like just stop in the middle of like season 2. So we're just gonna finish season
Mhm.
1, and then once those shows end up somewhere, even if it's on like DVD or Blu-ray, at least then we'll have something to watch.
Mhm.
So this is the last you'll hear about Daredevil for at least 3 more weeks until we figure out where it's going to end up, but not on Netflix anymore. And there were also other shows I was looking forward to checking out, like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and all those are now out the window too. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, Dill, first and foremost, I was confused because I was under the impression that these were all like Netflix shows. Like
They
Netflix like took part in
I
making
thought
them.
so too. Yeah, like they premiered on most of these, except for I think Agents of Shield and Agent Carter, premiered on Netflix. So like they were Netflix originals technically, even though they were Marvel. Yeah, I think it's a
So this
weird.
is
Yeah.
troubling that they're
Yes.
leaving Netflix.
Yes. So we improvise. We are both trained in acting. We can improvise. We actually competed in a acting competition doing improv where Kelsey tried to sell me a bear rug. Or did
No,
I try to sell you a
you
bear
were
rug?
selling me the bear rug. Oh
Yeah.
God,
Well,
don't.
I don't even know what the prompt was, but because the way the acting competition worked was you picked out of a hat a scenario, and then you had a minute to prep it, and then a 5-minute scene you just had to do, and you just got judged on that scene. Kelsey,
Yeah.
do you remember what the prompt was when we did it, or no?
It was something along the lines of, like, it was, like, the prompt was, like, $2,000 makeover or something like
Or
that.
like home renovation makeover or something like that.
Something
Yeah.
like that, and I just remember, we got our 30 seconds to prep, and I was like, "Dill, one of us has to be foreign because that's just funny, and that is, like,
Yes.
the only contribution I
Yes, because
made."
back in 2015, that was humor back then. We could
Yeah.
be
We
cultural
were dumb.
appropriation was dumb high school humor that we
To be
obviously, in
fair,
retrospect, was a
I
little
put on,
tasteless,
like
but
alright, we were dumb high schoolers for sure, and to be
yeah.
fair, I did put on, like, a Russian accent. I wasn't, like, making
No,
fun
yeah,
of, like, a
yeah,
marginalized demographic.
very, very fair, but yeah. No, it was an interesting scene, and we did not place, but
But
it's fine.
we came pretty damn close. I was
We did come
shitting
were we
bricks
were we
about
thir
with that.
were we 3rd in room? I can't remember.
We
Ugh.
were.
So they picked the top 2 from every room to go to finals, and we were 3rd in room, which
Yeah,
means the first runners up, which is in most people's cases the first losers. Um,
that's fine.
anyway, we're here to talk about Daredevil. Any other news you have, Kelsey? Because I know there's been a lot of news. Any other news?
No, that was my news, was
I'm
that
sorry, I
they're
took it
just
out of your mouth.
leaving.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
fine. It's
Another piece of
totally fine.
news: we got 2 Oscar nominations for Marvel, both for visual effects, Shang-Chi
That we did.
and Spider-Man. We kind of knew one of those was probably going to get in. I predicted Spider-Man. I didn't think Shang-Chi would get in just because sometimes they don't nominate 2 from the same studio. They did. I thought there was a chance Spider-Man could have also gotten in the sound, but I feel like visual effects is really kind of where they play their strengths. Not every movie is a Black Panther. In fact, only one movie is a Black Panther. Only one movie has been able to get like the Best Picture nomination and accolades. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's just good that they got nominations, and I think it's worthy. I honestly think the Shang-Chi visual effects are a little bit better than Spider-Man's. I think Spider-Man, the de-aging of Doc Ock is really good. Like that stuff is impressive, but like the actual final battle, it's not like mind-blowing CGI technology, but it's good. But the
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, like the dragon design and the 10 rings themselves, like I really like those
Mhm.
design aspects. So I think they're deserving.
Honestly, I'm kinda butthurt that Eternals didn't get nominated in this category. I thought
Yeah,
that was a stunningly made film.
yeah. Eternal shut out, and I think that just has to do with when films get bad word of mouth from critics, they're
Mm,
less likely to be sought out by the Academy in general. Eternals is one. Matrix is another one that got 0 nominations. When like if you watch that movie, whether or not you're on board with the story, like the visuals are amazing. Like them going through the mirrors and shit, like the mirrors turn like this like gelatin like thing and they can go through. Oh, I thought the visuals were mind blowing. So, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, the Oscars
it
only have
is what
5
it is.
slots, so. But anyway, I mean, on my channel every year we do the Pickle Awards, so they will be back this year. And I'll tell you, some Marvel movies are nominated, so I'm excited to announce those
Nice.
nominations soon. Kelsey will present an award, of course, because she has to. I don't know what award she'll
Amazing.
present yet. Maybe she'll present 2. Who knows? Did you present 2 last time, or just the one?
Just one. I
Hmm.
presented Best Kiss.
Yeah, which is a great superlative. I mean, MTV Movie Awards, where are you at? The Oscars got to take note of that.
Yeah,
I can tell
seriously.
you there is a Marvel film nominated in that category, so you'll have to stay tuned and see what that is. I bet you all can guess, but maybe not. You have an idea?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Well, you'll find out when the nominations come out. Anyway, we're here to talk about Daredevil. Kelsey, ease us into this. We left off
Sure.
last week. I left off on episode 6. I know you had already watched 7, so you kind of like gave us a little clue that Stick was coming. But yeah, a lot of different backstories and stuff in this next crop of episodes. So yeah, take
Yeah.
it away, Kelsey. What do you got to say about this?
Well, I gave a little bit of a summary for our first 6 episodes, so
Yeah.
here's me giving a summary for our last 7.
Hmm.
Um, Super broad, super general. As Matt gets closer and closer to closing in on Fisk, his personal relationships are threatened, putting everyone he loves in danger.
That's right. And I've got to say, first 6 episodes, I was kind of like, okay, like it's easing into it. I think
Yeah.
now we've finally got the groove of like what this is, and like I know we were kind of texting about it, so I'm interested to see like your final thoughts having now finished this season. But I think the season ended much better than it started. But Kelsey, I'd
Yes.
like to hear your thoughts.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, Dill. I
Yeah.
definitely think that out of the 2 halves, this is for sure the stronger half for
Yeah.
sure. And then
Yeah.
honestly, probably has a lot to do with the fact that I started paying attention more. Like for the first half, like, I would get distracted. I would be like, trying to take notes or doing something on my phone. I was like Googling a lot for like the first half, like just trying to
Yeah.
like research this character and like get to know everything. But then I would
Mhm.
miss crucial points in the show. And
Right.
I was doing a lot of rewatching, but this one, like I really just like allowed everything to like be taken in.
Absorb.
And there's
Yeah.
there's still a lot that I don't understand. There's like a lot of antagonists, I feel
Yeah.
like in general.
Well, and that's the kind of thing with the whole organized crime thing is that you've got like different little syndicates and little like kind of almost gangs within this giant, overarching umbrella thing. So like
Sure.
you've got like the Asian population of that, and then you've got like the other sides of things, and
The
then there's
Russians.
the Russians are our group in that, and then Wilson Fisk himself, and then like the people he's connected to, like the guy from Shawshank Redemption. I can't remember his name, but the old man who gets thrown into an elevator shaft, which is very violent. And
Oh,
again, we talked about the
Leland?
Leland, yes, who is
Yeah.
the warden in Shawshank, which is very exciting. But yeah, like just very again, the violence is just so
Yeah,
unfamiliar in terms of like MCU that it's just so refreshing. And I hate to say that because it's brutal and like violence is not okay, but like it's
totally.
it's refreshing to see it, and it gets even gruesomer and gruesomer as it goes along. But um, yeah, yeah, good collection of episodes. I think the action is just at its peak toward
Yeah.
this peak. Yeah, for sure.
And what I noticed a lot in the last 7 episodes that we watched, especially in episode 9, was that we were saying a lot last week that like it's very like gritty, but I also think that has a lot to do with like the film quality itself. Like the
Hmm.
shots are very grainy. Like I was
Yeah.
noticing this more. Like it feels like almost like kind of film noir, dare I say.
Ooh, getting all
Like kind of
fancy.
I
Yeah,
got
no, I
I
know what
know
you mean.
some things about movies.
Hell
I know
yeah,
you're the
hell yeah.
movie buff, but
Oh,
I
I mean,
dabble.
yeah, I mean, I'm the movie buff amongst our circle of friends, but if you look on the YouTube sphere, we're just getting started.
We're
No,
just
but yeah,
getting started.
it has some very noir, sensibilities and
Yeah.
characteristics and qualities, and it kind of plays in the idea that he is blind and like it is dark to him. His life is, kind of in the voids of the darkness. Like that's his whole
Yeah.
thing. Is he's the shadow. He's the devil of Hell's Kitchen. And I like how they incorporate the city. We didn't really talk about it in the last episode, but I like how there's like this idea of time and place in all of this where like it does feel kind of like what we've been missing from a lot of the Spider-Man MCU stuff, like this idea of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's kind of like we feel like this is very much a territorial thing. Like this feels very um you know fitting for the environment it's in. The violence itself just kind of fits the tone and atmosphere, like everything, all the locations, it gives that sense of style to the tone of the narrative. It pairs really nicely with everything going on stylistically. The locations and shots and everything are
Mhm.
really really nice. But
Totally.
yeah, like let's talk a little bit about just like some of the character arcs, since now we've kind of gotten a concluded character arc. And the one thing we were excited about in these first, because we're not going to go episode by episode just because there's so many episodes. But the one thing we were so excited about was this Claire relationship in the first six
Mhm.
episodes, and
Yeah.
now she appears, I think, in only one of these 7 episodes in the end,
Yeah.
or 6 episodes, and she doesn't do much. And I don't know the future of the series. I don't know if she's a bigger character, but we kind of talked last we left off. Was they were in like this weird like state of like, oh, I don't think we can be together, but like we're still gonna
Yeah.
work together. But then the last 7 episodes we just watched, they don't really work together either. Like she makes one phone call, I think, at one point. She does stitch him up and stuff because when
Mhm.
Foggy, and we'll get to that, when Foggy, discovers Matt all bruised and cut up, like she was there, but we didn't see that. And I
Yeah.
just think that's so interesting because we were like, I can't wait to see where this relationship goes because it already felt like its full arc because that was its full arc. And any thoughts on that? Because we were really excited about her character. It felt like a blue balls moment, just like a damn, like just
No,
cut it
yeah.
off so quick.
A tease for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, Dill, I was doing a lot of IMDBing while I watched the show, as I said, and it kind of ruined it for me because I did see that Rosario Dawson was only going to be in 8 episodes. So I don't think she's in it now for the rest of the series,
Ooh, okay.
which is a
It's a
definitely a
shame.
blow because
Yeah.
we loved her character, we love Rosario, like
Hmm.
we were excited for this to
Yeah.
happen.
I mean,
She's
It's Mimi and Rent. How can you not
yeah,
be excited? It's Ahsoka Tano in Star
exactly.
Wars. I mean, I know it means something to you, but that's exciting.
And plus, like, I feel like she added such an interesting perspective to the story, being
Mhm.
the only person that knew his true identity at the time.
Right.
She knew who he was
Mhm.
during the day and at night, and I just feel like, now Foggy knows who he is, but,
Yeah.
that drove a real
Reg
wrench
wench.
wench that drove a real wench in their
Oh,
relationship.
yeah.
English is hard sometimes.
No, it's fine. Yeah, ominous. Yeah, but I think the Foggy moment, and let's just go to that because that is, I think, the peak of this series. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's the Kingpin. It's when they finally see each other in the art museum as people, and then it's like, oh, when they finally fight each other, and then like
Mhm.
when he's finally Daredevil. No, like to me, the like jaw dropping like OMG moment was that moment where Foggy does discover him because it's almost like when we were little watching Hannah Montana and there were like trailers for the episode where Oliver finds out and it's like the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
trailer
yeah.
of her taking off the wig and she's like, I'm Hannah Montana. She's got like the black bubblegum face and like
Yes.
I remember that trailer and I remember the hype and I can't imagine just watching this and being like, oh shit, he's gonna find out because yeah, you forget that she was the only person who knew. And then we go through this whole backstory with them and we see them in college and like those
Mhm.
scenes are my favorite because it's like
Yeah.
we're getting the character development and it's not all surrounded and submerged in all this darkness. It's like just them on their own as people just interacting and being friends and that helps us like them more because I always liked Foggy, I always liked Matt, but together we finally get a sense of their bond and it makes it even more heartbreaking when Foggy throws the thing in the trash and obviously we knew it was
Mm.
going to get resolved because there's two more seasons of this thing. But
Right.
I
Right.
find it interesting that people still don't know who he is, and like we're only getting started with Daredevil, and that's why it sucks that it's getting taken off Netflix because like I feel like we're just now getting Daredevil. We had Matt, we
Mhm.
got the guy in the black mask, but now it's like now Daredevil's here, and now like I want to
Yeah.
keep going, but alas,
Yeah,
we'll have to
totally.
wait. But
Yeah, episode 10, Nelson versus Murdoch. It's the
mhm,
episode that we're talking about. That was
yeah,
hands down my favorite out of
me too.
the
Yeah.
uh
hmm
7 that we watched.
because
Really
also there
good.
were so many other plot lines that like we were kind of figuring out like how did Urich's character, I finally learned how to pronounce his name, how did Urich's character kind of like tie into this, like what was the other third party stuff, and I think this episode did a good job in that, bringing in the idea that they went to that nursing home and they end up running into Wilson Fisk's mom. And then
Mhm.
there's also the story of, Wilson Fisk's right-hand guy Wesley gets whacked and there's the stuff with Foggy going on. Like I think there's so many things going on at once
Yeah.
that it made this finale exciting because you were waiting to see it all kind of joined together. It was like
Yeah.
opposite Pangea. It was like we had seen everything, and now we need it all to collide. And I like that, and I like how it was only really just three main things instead of like what we saw with Hawkeye, where it's like six different plot lines having to resolve in 30 minutes. It was like no, we had a whole hour to resolve just like two big plot lines and bring them together. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. And one thing I do have to point out, Dill, something that I really, really appreciate with this show is
hmm
that Karen Page, she's not a damsel in distress. She's
No,
not a
she's not.
girlfriend. She's not a side character. She's a go-getter. She goes after. She's very much like involved as much as, Matt is, as much as Foggy is. Like I just love how she's like really driving a lot
Mhm.
of like her own subplots along.
And now she's got a secret, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of not grief but that stress and like that secret looms on her and how it kind of eats her away because already we're seeing it's tough like when she talks to Matt and Matt knows because Matt knows
Yeah.
Matt has a
Yeah.
feeling he doesn't know what exactly happened but he feels a
No, yeah.
sense of tone change and the heartbeat change. He can sense it, and it's interesting going to be to see how like that dynamic changes because she now has a big secret that she's dealing with, and we see it
Mhm.
happen right before Urich's funeral, and we see her break down at Urich's funeral because she's also carrying that burden as well of
Mhm.
feeling responsible for his death, which is another big thing. I didn't expect that to happen. I'm sure IMDb spoiled
Yeah.
that for you too. But
Oh,
what were your
no, it
thoughts on that?
didn't.
Oh, okay, good.
Uh, yeah, honestly, Dill, I was very impressed with how much this show, shocked me and, like, really
hmm
kept me on my toes
Yeah,
because there's just, like between, like, the Karen Page moment, like, the interrogation happening and, like, then Urich's death and all that stuff, I literally wrote down, I was like, "This show takes an unexpected twist every now and then," and
yeah,
I really appreciate that, like,
yeah.
how
Yeah.
she how you think, she's in this interrogation room. There's a gun on the table. There's a guy offering her, he's like, I got a job for you. And it's like, okay, she's either going to do the double agent thing where she pretends to start working for Fisk. Maybe she turns on Foggy and Matt totally and then, completely starts working for Fisk. But no, complete 180. She picks up the gun.
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you actually think I would give you a loaded gun?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. Do you think this is the first time I've really shot someone?" And then she killed him. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was
Because it's
shocked.
very, it could be the reverse psychology thing of, okay, the gun's empty, I'm not going to shoot it. And if it is empty,
Yeah.
then you shoot it and it's, nothing happens. And because in most shows, that's what it is. It's they pull the trigger, but no bullet comes out. And they just kind
Right.
of have that feeling of like, oh, okay, I almost did that, but this actually went off. And it's like, oh, because also it's a main character. And that's the thing is we don't know, I don't know, at least from IMDb, who's going to be in the rest of the series. So like, I don't know who's
Yeah.
going to get clipped at any minute. Um, yeah, I know
Rosario
it's
is
tough.
the only one that I knew. I don't
Okay, good.
know the fate of anyone else.
Okay,
I
good, good, good.
promise.
Yeah, but I think also with the Uric death, there's that moment where you don't even know if Kingpin's there. So he's just typing away, and then you hear him, and you're like, "Oh shit, Kingpin's there!" And you think it's gonna go one way.
Mhm.
You think he's gonna kill him right away, but not. He doesn't. He kind of like has this heart to heart, and you almost think he's gonna get away with it. But then you see that exact turn where he's just like, "I did not come here to threaten you. I came here to kill you," and then he just
Yeah.
charges at him like a bull. And it's like one of those moments where you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
crap!" Like all these characters are vulnerable, and really, except for Matt, if Kingpin goes after you, you're gonna die because he's just so much stronger than you, and he's
Yeah.
calculated. And I think that's one thing too. He's not just strength. He's not the Hulk. He's not someone who's just big brute strength that could just beat you up at any minute. He is the
Sure.
calculated brute where he plans everything 3 steps ahead. So
Mm.
when he sneaks up on you, you really can't defend yourself. And that's why it's tough. And that's why Matt has to face him twice to even face him a third time, or face him
Yeah.
once, I guess. But I don't know. That moment definitely shocked me too. It kind of reminded me of like No Country for Old Men when like Javier Bardem's just sitting there with his gun in the shadow and he's like, "I'm gonna kill you," and he's just so calm and cool, and collected about it. But then Wilson takes it the next level and it's just like goes to 100 immediately, and those scenes are violent. They don't hold back, and it's tough because then they
Yeah.
pan over his face and it's just dead, and he's just eyes are open, and it's haunting. I mean,
Yeah.
this really cemented Wilson Fisk as like the scary Kingpin that I've been waiting for. That everyone
Mhm.
said was scary, and then people said, "Oh wait, Hawkeye didn't make him out to be that scary." Like this is the one I think people were like expecting to see in Hawkeye, the one that they were kind of expecting just this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wilson Fisk,
Mm.
what did you think of his whole episode, episode 8, his
I
whole
was gonna say
backstory?
if there was a second best episode, I think was it yes Shadows in the Glass episode 8. That
Yep.
was my other favorite episode because like you have to understand. I think the best thing about these villains in the MCU, at least of late, like Killmonger and Loki, like you really understand who they are as people. And
Mhm.
Kingpin, we weren't there yet. We were kind of getting a little bit of it with Vanessa, but now we finally get it with this episode where we see him kill his father and we see the emotional turmoil he went through with his father. But then we also kind of see how that made him worse, even though it was like a bittersweet thing. Like he was protecting his mother, but at the same time, he was
Mhm.
creating this raging bull inside himself. I mean, that was
Mhm.
just a haunting episode, and the kid who
Yeah.
played him was actually really good. What do you
Yeah.
think of it?
Honestly, from the first shot, I was like, okay, like we're getting like a nice Wilson like
Hmm.
backstory ep. Like he's in his luxurious apartment.
Right.
He's making himself breakfast. He has the same breakfast every morning. And then he picks through his collection of black to charcoal to dark gray suits, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he turns and it's just this harrowing image of like a young boy with blood splattered all over his face. And
Yeah.
for a second I couldn't decide whether or not this was a boy, like maybe he had killed and now that has always haunted him,
Oh,
or if this was
if it
just a
was him,
younger
yeah,
version of him.
yeah,
As we know, it turned out to be the younger version of him, and I was just like,
yeah,
okay, so now the entire time I'm in the flashback, I'm like, so when does this kid end up with blood all over his face? And it
yeah.
was when he got revenge on his
Crazy.
father.
Yeah, like
And
such
yeah,
good
what an
backstory.
awful man his father
Yeah,
was. What
yeah.
an
Awful.
awful, awful human being.
Awful man. Yeah, and it just the whole relationship with his mother. It almost you never root for him, but you kind of just
Mhm.
understand him. And I think that's so
Yeah.
important with a villain is understanding where he comes from because Foggy kind of says it too. He's like, Matt, or what you're doing the right thing? Claire said it to him too. She's like, the reason I can't be with you is because you're the exact man. The one that you want to take down is exactly the type of man you're becoming. And it's like there's that idea of like the
Mm,
anti-hero thing that Matt himself is kind of dark and not doing the right thing but doing a better thing. It's like the lesser of two evils thing. Especially
sure.
when you have all this backstory with Wilson, it really helps just kind of paint that picture too of where they're both just like they're both troubled in their own ways, and just one goes about it much better, obviously. But yeah, to see them finally come together, and the first meeting they have is in person at the art museum. It's not as Kingpin and Daredevil; it's as
Yeah.
Wilson and Matt, which I think
Yeah.
is even more intriguing because like they don't know. Well, Matt knows who he is, but he doesn't know who Matt is, and it's very interesting to see how he carries himself one way versus the other. Um, yeah,
That was a very interesting moment at the art
uh-huh.
museum. She was like,
Yeah,
"Well, why don't you ask him, yourself?" And I was like, "There's no way they're gonna meet and, like, hang out right now. There's just no way." And then it
right.
happened, and it was just one of those
Yeah.
great moments where I'm like,
Mhm.
"This TV show, it's done it again.
It's
It's
yeah.
really turned the tables on me."
It's like in Spider-Man. I always bring it back to the Raimi Spider-Man films because they're the ones I have memorized front to back. But it's like at
Okay.
Thanksgiving when Green Goblin Norman Osborn is at Thanksgiving with Peter, and Peter has that. It's
Mm,
like they're interacting and they don't know, but then Peter has
yeah.
that scar and he's like it was a bicycle accident. There's this like one exchange, this little moment where they kind of understand that like they are who they are, and
Yeah.
just it's so good just like seeing them in their everyday life. Like I love that stuff like where it's
Or
very
yeah.
clear who they are to the audience, but they don't know each other. It's so good.
Yeah, or in Homecoming when, Peter meets Adrian
Yes,
Toomes.
100%, 100%,
Yeah.
and that's why I think that's the strongest point of the movie, and I don't love
Mhm.
that movie. I've gone on record
Mhm.
saying I think it's
I
one of the
know.
weaker
I know.
movies, but I love that moment because it is menacing, and Michael Keaton plays it. I think it's all up to the actor also to play it cool and play it
Yes.
like you're a guy in public, like the camera's always watching, and that's what Vincent D'Onofrio does so well here too, is because he's very good at transitioning between the kind of the Wizard of Oz thing, the man behind the curtain and then the man in front of it. And the man in front of the curtain is very different. The guy you see on TV is not the guy behind the curtain, not the one in the shadows. And that is just so compelling.
Yeah.
Just a great villain performance. I mean, these performances across the board are really good, especially
Yeah.
Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio. There's a reason they bring them back into the MCU now. There's a reason they're here, is
Right.
because they're very
Right.
very good. Yeah,
How exciting for them, just, like, as
good for them.
actors to be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, wanna do this
hmm
thing again?"
hmm
I'd be like, "Oh, let me dust off the
Yeah.
cobwebs.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll do it."
Yeah. Anything else?
Dill
I mean, did
it
yeah.
it took me until the last episode, which is the highest rated out of
Mm.
this season according to IMDb, in
Interesting.
case you're curious. Um, but I did write, I kinda hate Fisk, but I guess that's kind of the point.
Well, I'm
But,
glad
like,
you do. That's
I
good.
think I was just getting so irritated and fed up with
Mhm.
him at that point. I was like, "Ah," and then I also wrote before that, I was like, "Wilson Fisk is kinda like Michael Myers, where in a sense where, like, nothing can, like, kill
Yeah.
him."
Yeah, and it's almost more haunting than Michael Myers because it's not supernatural. And I think Michael
Yeah.
Myers, that was kind of the thing at first before the 1,000 Halloween sequels came out, but
Right.
it was like the fact that he's just man and he's not,
Yeah.
he's not anything but that, but yet he can still bounce back. He can fall off a 3-story house and get right back up and walk away, or get burned alive in a house or beat to death or stabbed to death or baseball batted to death and still be alive for another Halloween movie. And it's like, what? How?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a great point. He is like that. But I think there's almost something even scarier to the fact that he is just so menacing. His presence is so towering too. And he has
Mhm.
that ability to shift into the politician, like really like good guy trying to save the city mode that puts on a mask for everyone else. And I like that
Sure.
idea that Wilson's been wearing a mask without having to wear a mask, and that's just haunting as well. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I mean, this is yeah, still
What
so much
happened
fun.
to our Foggy Karen romance?
I was wondering the same thing because almost like I kind of felt like there were some
'Cause
underlying things with Karen and Matt toward the end, and I was like, wait a sec,
yeah, I
I
felt
don't
that too,
know.
Dill. I
Because
felt
now
that too.
Foggy's back with his ex-girlfriend, but also she didn't get a real amount of character growth to where like I don't care about that relationship. I thought it was just him resorting to his old ways without
Yeah.
Matt and showing that without Matt he's worse off. But then at the end he's like, no, I think I'm gonna like stay with her. And very weird. I almost feel like the first
Mhm.
3 or 4 episodes were like a pilot for the show that like once they hit the ground running, they were like, okay, now let's like make the show we want to make because like there were some things that earlier on, like Claire, like the romance between Karen and Foggy, that just kind of fizzled out. That don't amount to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird. I feel like I put on that episode where he's, like, waking up in, like, her bed, and I was
hmm
like, "Wait, wait, when did this happen? When did they even start speaking again?" I thought he hated her,
Well, I
and
think that was in response to the Matt thing. He was just like, I'm pissed off. I'm gonna get really drunk and just sleep with this ex that I know is toxic. I think that was what he was
okay.
trying to say. But then again, it was like, yeah, I agree. It was like after that they were still kind of talking, and then like they try to give her some redemption. I was like, we barely know you, and yeah, that
But
was weird.
then
That was
I
weird.
felt like it was more he was really going to her for, like, work things and, like, trying to
Hmm.
get, the lowdown on, like, Wilson's trial
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
yeah.
So
I really don't
maybe
know. Yeah.
honestly, she might be a good person to, keep in contact with, keep in touch,
Yeah.
because if she's gonna be on the inside of everything.
But I like that foggy romance, and I just
No, I did
I
too. I
almost
did too.
hope it wasn't like a like joking about like, oh, we're on our date. Like I really did think they had good chemistry, but
Yeah, I
maybe not. I don't know.
agree.
Especially if Claire's going away, are they going to try to do the Karen and Matt thing? I don't know. Is there going to be someone else introduced into the equation? Is Jessica Jones a future love interest? Hopefully, we'll find out if they put this thing on Hulu or Disney Plus. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to stay tuned. Although in the comic books, Matt
Sorry,
and Karen are together. So,
Matt and Karen. Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
They're
Well, I mean,
together in, like, college.
yeah. Well, that's interesting because they don't know each other till later. I mean, obviously,
But
it takes some liberties from the comics, but yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, for
interesting. I don't
sure.
know.
But I don't know,
Interesting.
maybe they'll go the comic book route and try to get
Speaking
them
of
to get
that,
be
do you have
together
any
somehow.
info on like comic stuff? Anything that you noticed or took note on or
Nothing
anything?
nothing new from last week.
Okay, cool.
I do wanna spend a second talking about Stick, though. I wanna know what
Yeah.
you thought of the character of Stick.
Yeah, it was interesting because it almost kind of felt like it's like another one-off kind of side thing, but it helps kind of establish who Matt is and that character. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was an interesting little side character. I like him in that small dosage though. Like I like how we only kind of saw him once because we didn't need a ton of that backstory. But it was an interesting relationship. I mean, it was a little while ago that I watched it, but yeah, I remember really liking it. What are your thoughts?
No, yeah. It was definitely interesting to, like, see because he's so talented with, like, combat and everything. I was
Hmm.
the first 6 episodes, I'm going, "Well, how the did you learn how to do all
Yeah,
this?"
it's like in Hawkeye. It's like, how did Maya learn how to do all this? She's deaf and she has a prosthetic leg. It's like, how
No,
did she
yeah,
learn to
for
be so
sure.
resilient?
Oh,
Yeah. Ugh.
what a sweet episode. Oh, I miss that show.
A
Maybe I'll
sweet episode.
rewatch.
That's the episode where her father gets brutally murdered.
I know,
No, I'm
but
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
it really makes her become who she is, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, I get it.
Thick skin.
Yeah, I
But,
like how they kind of tied in, like disability into this too, and making that kind of a
yeah.
topic of conversation, especially with like Foggy and trying to understand like your heightened senses, but you're still blind, and just like kind of asking those questions because it does almost feel like a betrayal, but it's also like Matt's like, well, that's just me. Like I'm not gonna straight out tell you the minute I met you, like, hey, I had this accident that now I have heightened senses and I'm deaf and all like and blind and all this stuff. It's like, no, like that's just not natural. And I like to see both sides of that because it's honestly a real life argument you would have if this was the scenario. If you just
Yeah.
met someone and just kind of had to lie to them, but not really lie to them, just kind of not tell them the truth. There's a difference, I think, between lying and just withholding information. And it's a weird line to toe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. A gray area. There were some quotes that I wrote down from the Stick episode that just made me chuckle because I was like, this guy's funny.
Yeah.
And I think I really like the character of Stick. I mean, he kind of did like do Matt a little dirty, especially in his youth when he was just, a child. But, it really helped build his character and like build who he is today. So, I wrote down, "Stick left me, boo-hoo, I'll drown my sorrows between the legs of a supermodel." That was a quote
Interesting.
from Stick. Stick
Wow.
said that in the episode.
Stick. What a
Um,
guy.
and this is a conversation between Matt and Stick. Matt says, "I've learned a lot since you've been gone." Stick, "Like what?" "You're a dick." It's just, like,
I
very,
love that.
like, quick. They're, like, just
Yeah.
very, like, to the point, like, it's just
Yeah.
very, like, punchy and witty,
Yeah,
and
because
I
Stick's not
like it
like
a
a
lot.
father. He's like kind of a father figure, but he's like kind
Yeah.
of like the cool uncle where it's like you can still get away with saying shit like that to
Yeah.
your son. Yeah,
Because
but I do like the moment where they bond over like the ice cream, and he's like, the dairy was left out for like 3 days, and there's like this aroma, there's
yeah.
dust from the hand of the guy who served you the ice cream, like all those little details. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Just like
Yeah.
talking about things and learning how to explore sensory things without one of your senses.
Yeah, and they even said in the episode, like, Stick was like, "I was looking for a soldier, but you were looking for a father, and, like,
Hmm.
that's why our
Yeah.
relationship didn't work out," and it's such an interesting, like, take on the kinda mentor figure, because if you
Right.
look at, like, Tony and Peter's relationship, it's like
Hmm.
Tony was trying desperately to be a father figure. Like, he
Right.
wanted that for Peter and for himself to have that sort of
Mhm.
relationship, and that's what Stick did not want for him and Matt. He
Definitely.
wanted a warrior, a soldier, a trained assassin.
Yeah.
He's much more like a Thanos and Gamora type of situation.
There you go. Yeah, I like how kind of like the stick stuff and then the Matt at college stuff with Foggy and like the Wilson Fisk backstory. Like, it wasn't just like backstory. It was like every few episodes, then we get like a little bit of backstory because we need that
Yeah.
backstory. And I think that
Yeah.
this is where like a show at this length does such a good job that some movies just can't do because you only have so much time. And that's why origin story movies don't come across as well as these series, because the series have more time to kind of just, let the backstory unfold. And I like that aspect, the fact that um we got backstory dispersely, but we still got enough of it to like make it resonate and actually make sense. And I like how we didn't get it all at the beginning, so we kind of like new chapters kind of surprise us as it went along, which I like
Mhm.
for any series. Yeah.
I wrote down another quote
Yeah.
from episode 9. It's
Hmm.
when Foggy finally finds out like Matt's identity and who Daredevil is when he's in his apartment. He's like, he kind of enters cuz he's like, "Oh, like Matt, I heard a thud." And he says, "Not the fun sexy kind, but more of the fallen and I can't get up variety." But he's still kind of scared.
Yeah.
He delivered that line so well. I was like, "That's funny." And they
Yeah.
do such a good job of like having such a gory, gritty, grainy show, but then also
Hmm.
having these like very nicely like integrated moments of
Hmm.
comedy and of humor.
Yeah, and it's not
It's a
like
nice
and
balance.
I don't want to diss on the MCU because we obviously podcast about it a lot, but it's not like
Mhm.
where it feels like you're really going for the audience laugh. It's not. It's like they're just in their conversations. Maybe it's a funny line, but it's not going to be like a laugh out loud like type
Yeah,
line. It's like more this underlying thing that just like it almost makes you chuckle. And I think that fits with this story. You can't have a story like this where every line is a laugh out line loud line. Otherwise, it kind of just diminishes everything else. And that's kind of one of the issues I had with having Kingpin and Hawkeye, is that the tone of the
sure.
show just felt overall a little lighter. So when you get into the heavy things like the grief over Black Widow, and then you get to the stuff with Kingpin
Mm,
and stuff like that, feels like it should be a lot darker, but it isn't, because everything else is like, oh, we're singing Christmas carols and the dog likes pizza, and and it's great. And it's great, but it's like there's almost so
yeah,
many different shows going on in that, where it's like I wish the Echo show was where you bring Hawkeye in and have that be the darker show, and have like the Kate Bishop stuff. You can make that the Black Widow grief thing, and then you bring in Yelena, and like that's your deepness, but it's still overall mostly a comedy. Like, I wish almost like that was the case, but again, like they only have 6 episodes there. Was here it was 13, and we're gonna see 26 more episodes someday, depending on what
mhm,
streaming service it ends up on.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm a fan. I like this show. I think early on I wasn't hooked, but I did like it because I know you texted me, and at the point you texted me, you were like, I just don't know if I'm feeling this. And I was
yeah,
honestly agreeing with you because I was still halfway through, and I was like, I just don't know. I don't get the hype yet, because I think there's a difference
yeah,
between liking it and then getting the hype, because the hype for the show is like up at the rooftops, like
yeah. Everyone says
skyrocket.
that
So
this is the best one out of all the ones on Netflix.
people say it's better than anything the MCU's done. Like people really live and breathe by this. Like this is their show. Like this is their Marvel, and it's
Mm,
interesting because like I wasn't getting the vibe, but now like as it's gone on, I'm like, yeah, no, this is a badass show, and it's so distinctly different that I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it, I get the hype, but I'm still not like 100% like 10 out of 10 yet. Like I'm still at like a 7 or 8. But like I think it's only going to get better from here, especially since Fisk is locked up, and I know he comes back later. I know he's not done, but like
mhm,
he's locked up, so now we can kind of like explore something else for a season, and then
yeah,
maybe get him back later. I don't know exactly
totally.
what the ins and outs are, but any predictions for what's going to happen? I love how we can make predictions since people have already watched the show, even though we haven't. So we're making predictions as people who
Yeah,
don't know what's coming. But I know we're getting Punisher in the next season. I remember that as the Punisher season, but I don't know what that
okay.
entails. So what is your any predictions on what's going to happen?
Well, Dill, the most exciting thing that happened in the last episode was that we finally got our outfit, our
Yes, we did.
costume, our
And you
uniform.
love a good costume reveal. I know another thing, I hate to compare it, but Hawkeye, you were not pleased with the costume reveal, but do you like this costume
Because
reveal? Are you a fan?
I I did like the costume reveal a
Nice.
lot. I
Cool, cool,
literally
cool,
wrote
cool.
down, I said, "He got his outfit, damn." That's what I wrote next to it. So, yeah, I think I'm just for season 2, depending on, when we watch
Yeah,
it,
we
if we
will
watch
watch it.
it.
We will watch it eventually, even if it means that we have to like go to like some other country and get a pirated bootleg of it. Like we will get it, and we will
Yeah.
podcast about it. It's just it might not be for a while because we're gonna try to do it the legal way. I'm assuming it has to end up somewhere, whether it's Hulu or Disney Plus, or even if they just drop a DVD of it. Like I'll buy it and we'll watch it together. Like we'll find a way to podcast about it,
Yeah.
but it won't be next week or in the next few weeks. We have stuff lined up for that.
Honestly, Dill, what I really liked about the first half of the first season was
Mhm,
like it kind of like it almost felt like an episodic show where like a Criminal Minds, a Law and Order SVU, like
mhm,
those kind of like police, law enforcement,
right,
what have you, episodics, and that's what I'm looking forward to in season 2. I feel like it's more of those kind of storylines that maybe do get resolved in like by the end of the 40 minutes or whatever it
right,
is, and then
yeah,
maybe there's one overarching thing that
mhm,
is happening in the background all
mhm,
season kind of
yeah, yeah.
story, because
My
now
big
that he's got his suit, his best friend knows his identity. I feel
right,
like we can get more into like
yeah.
him just like being the neighborhood daredevil, if you will.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot about Karen also. I think it's going to be a big Karen focused thing, both with her, them trying to conceal his
Mm,
identity to her, but then also like have her go through the turmoil of having killed someone, act like
right.
legitimately kill someone and not just been accused for it. But like, I'm really excited to see that because I think that's going to add an extra dimension. And will she be betrayed when she finds out? Will she be more involved when she finds out? Like, I don't know. I'm assuming she'd be less betrayed than Foggy, but still like
Yeah.
betrayed in the fact that like Foggy didn't tell her, and I don't know if that romance is gonna happen or not. But I'm interested to see what happens with her character, especially now that I guess Claire's just non-existent. You know, you had two really great female characters, now you get rid of one. It's like, come on.
Mm,
But
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Honestly, I feel like she's gonna have to find out, like, eventually, so whenever
Well, yeah,
Karen
yeah.
does end up finding out his true identity, I think she's honestly gonna be kinda stoked. I feel like
Mm,
she's gonna be like, "Oh my god, really? First
I
of
have
all,
a
thank you for saving my life. Second of all, oh my god, this is great now. I'm gonna be your guy in the chair," kinda thing.
I have a bold prediction, and it
Okay.
goes back to Spider-Man. I think she might have the MJ Spider-Man kiss in the rain moment where she like falls in love with Daredevil but doesn't know it's Matt. And I
I
have a
kinda love
prediction that
that.
she's gonna like be like entranced by this Daredevil guy and like she's gonna get saved by him and fall
Mm.
in love with him, and then when she finds out it's Matt, it's gonna be this like big awkward thing, and that's where we
Yeah,
get our
yeah,
romance
yeah.
here. And then I don't know because if they're not going the Foggy route, like that's what I would do. But again, I don't know, and I'm waiting to be so wrong about it. But that's what I would
No,
do
but
if
I
we're
would
gonna
love
get rid
that,
of
though.
if we're gonna get rid of both of the great romances from the first 6 episodes and just squash them. Then you might as well do this.
But
Another great romance, the Vanessa romance, which we haven't really talked about, but you know
oh,
that's an
yeah.
interesting element too. I thought they were gonna kill her. I thought they were flat out gonna kill her just because of what we've seen into the Spider Verse. But I don't know. No.
Yeah. I mean, I don't foresee her lasting very long. I feel
Yeah.
like that's gonna be his like,
Yeah, and with
the
him not around for the next
twist.
season, I don't think they're gonna keep her around much, unless she does kind of come into this like you got my guy taken away. I'm now gonna take matters into my own hands, and then maybe she becomes a supervillain. I don't know.
Oh,
I
maybe.
I want to pitch the show to Netflix, even though it's already done 2 more seasons.
Here's what I will say
Yeah,
though, Dill.
yeah.
The only aspect of his outfit, his suit that I don't like is that he has eye holes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the horns. Yeah, what about
No,
the
no,
yeah?
no. The horns I don't mind. I mean, I for sure I mean like we always like to see like everything about a suit have a
Yeah,
purpose, and like the horns like definitely are for an aesthetic for,
the devil
creative
thing.
purposes, whatever.
But I think
But
the eye holes though is gonna
I
help him not come across because the thing is if he has eye holes, no one's gonna think he's blind, and
that's true,
because
but
you if they know he's blind, they're gonna try to take advantage of that. Anyway, keep going, keep going, keep going.
well, I thought that it was cool when he had his little like hoodie over his eyes because it
Mhm,
added this extra element of like, oh, this guy has a blindfold on. I could take him
mhm.
out easily, and then boom, he does karate and all
Oh,
this
so
stuff.
they should
So
try
they're
it out
not
there afterwards.
expecting it.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. That's a good point.
And it was just
Mhm.
it just made him look cooler, I think.
No,
But
I
also,
know.
if he's blind, people could come to the conclusion that he may or may not be Matt Murdock.
Right, yeah, that's a good point.
Because Matt Murdock is the only blind person in Hell's
Who
Kitchen.
was the only blind person we've seen, right? Oh well, Stick. Sorry,
Well,
not
no, that factory of
right.
drug
Yes, you're right. You're right.
makers,
You're right. You're right. No,
which
there's
I
plenty.
completely forgot about.
I
He
that's the thing,
followed
there's
that
so many things going on, yeah. Oh,
There's so many layers. He
it's
followed
late,
that
it's
woman
late.
in the car to the
Yeah.
cocaine factory or whatever they're
Yeah.
selling. I
I
genuinely don't
again, a
know.
lot of shit going on, and that's what's great about the show, is there is a lot going on, but I feel like because you have 13 episodes rather than 6, you have time to, like, let it all breathe. Like, there were almost times where I was like, "Alright, we can go, we can go." where some of these Marvel shows, MCU shows, I'm like, halt a little bit, like give us some time. Which is why I think WandaVision is one of the more successful ones because it's 9 episodes. Some of
Yeah.
the other ones are 6, but that's just the nature of it. That's what that's just the economy. Any last
So
thoughts before we put this one to bed until they end up streaming somewhere else? I mean, what bad timing. Anyway,
Jill, I have
anything?
a very important question for you.
Okay, I have hopefully have an answer.
How do you think this compares to the shows we watch on Disney Plus? You like it better? You like it worse?
I think it has a more distinct vision, no pun intended to WandaVision, but like a more like it feels so distinctly its own thing, which I think is something that I like. I like, I've said I like Eternals for that reason. I like WandaVision for
Mhm.
that reason, or at least a lot of parts of WandaVision for that reason. And Loki. I think I like shows that are just different, so I like that aspect. I think the actual like cohesion between storylines. There are some storylines that just kind of like I said, tampered off that like I didn't love. Like it almost could have just been a little tighter, but I think the
Mhm.
performances are great. It's hard to rank them because they're also so different tonally. But I
Yeah.
say this is definitely like upper tier, maybe not top tier, but like this is like definitely above like I like this more than Hawkeye. I like this more than Falcon and Winter Soldier. I like this more than like maybe even a little more than Loki, a little bit. I don't know. See, it's hard. It's just so hard to compare them. But like I'm liking
Yeah.
it, and I think if Moon Knight does go in this darker direction, like I could see Moon Knight being very similar, where it's like this is just so cool aesthetically that I can forgive some of the narrative choices, even though the narrative choices are good. It's just like some storylines feel like they're gypped, cut off a little too soon,
Mm.
and not fulfilled, just because there's so many things going on. And I think this is also one of those things where I think I've heard season 2 and 3 are just better. And if this is the worst season and it's this good, I think that's a good thing for the show. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think it stacks up?
I agree with everything you said. I definitely think that it definitely stacks up to what we watch on Disney Plus.
Cool.
Just the
Yeah.
MCU is like I know you don't like this aspect of the MCU and how everything figures out a way to be connected to either
Yeah.
past or future projects, but because of that fact, the the attention to detail, like everything
Right.
gets flushed out. Like
Yeah, that's a good
there's
point.
not a moment that isn't super purposeful,
Right.
a shot that isn't purposeful,
Yeah.
a piece of, a line that's said that isn't
Like this one,
purposeful
you
in the
can get up and
MCU.
go pee and come back, and you'll probably be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Whereas like those ones, you want to really cling on to every detail, and that's fair. And I think that's
You
why
know?
like I really like the MCU also is because it's all connected. But there's a point where it's like if I'm judging this as an individual piece of art, is a totally different way of judging it than in the realm of everything else. Because if you're judging it in the realm of everything else, I think MCU is one of the most efficient and successful franchises ever. But if you're looking at like something to be nominated for like a best picture, when like my mom was saying where she hadn't seen the first 2 Tom Holland movies, so she didn't care about Aunt May, and you have to kind of think about that, like, oh yeah, you kind of forget that like you need so much context. Whereas here it was nice because I
Mhm.
didn't need the context, but I think that's just where it's like it depends on what you're judging it as. Are you judging it as its own thing, or are you judging it in the context of the series? Because I think they are two different things, and I think most MCU stuff in the context of the series is really strong, and on its own, sometimes not as much, sometimes even more so like in Eternals. I think it's better on its own than it is in the context of the series, whereas I think Hawkeye is better in the context of everything else than it is on its own. So I really think it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting
Mhm.
outlook either way. Whatever you
And what I
perceive.
will say about Daredevil is that I like the fact that it doesn't feel the need and it doesn't have to be family friendly. Like it's very
Mm-hmm.
much mature. It's for mature
Yeah.
audiences, it's for adult fans.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah.
all those things where it's like any aspect of the MCU, whether it's a TV show, a new movie, what have
Mm-hmm.
you, it's going to have to be that like kind of family friendlier
Yeah.
aspect unless they
That's true
start
too.
doing R-rated things.
Which
We don't
we
know.
we are rumored to be getting that when Deadpool 3 comes out, but I don't know. And Deadpool 3 is going to be a really interesting one because they're going to have to introduce kind of bring up the topic of the fact that they were bought out by Disney. And
Right.
that's gonna
Will
be really
definitely
fun and meta.
be that's gonna be
Um,
like the first it's like, "Wow, wait, Walt Disney bought us." Like,
yeah.
that's gonna be like
So you're
Ryan
wondering
Reynolds
why I'm here? Well, I am too. Like it's not. I don't know. But
Yeah, yeah,
so the
totally.
mouse found his way to our little nook and cranny of the world. No, but like I'm worried only because I saw that Once Upon a Deadpool thing that they did for Christmas, where they did a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2, it was one of the most boring things in the world, because you realize how boring it is without seeing any blood and guts or hearing any cursing. You realize
Yeah.
how stale it is, and that's not really anything bad to say about Deadpool, because that's not what Deadpool is. And it was just kind
Yeah.
of like, why would you even do that? Like, if you just want to make a PG-13 version, make something else. Like, just make another quippy superhero. Do like Free Guy. Free Guy. If you want to do a PG-13 Deadpool, just watch Free Guy. You're getting Ryan Reynolds doing quips, but it's family friendly. Like,
Yeah.
don't try to fuck with Deadpool. It's like, don't make. I know there's dietary restrictions, but like, I don't, sugarless cakes or whatever. I'm like, just don't eat a biscuit. Like, if you're
If
gonna
you
have a
have
cake,
if you
have a
have the
cake with
means,
sugar.
eat the cake.
Yeah, it's yeah, like,
I want extra sugar in my cake,
Like, if
actually.
yeah, if I'm going to, like, get a latte, I'm gonna put, some sugar and caramel in it. If I don't want that, then I'm just gonna order a tea. And I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm trying to make comparisons and metaphors. It's
No,
midnight
I'm
where I'm
following.
at,
I'm
but yeah,
following.
well, we're both at the same point. I'm acting like we're on different coasts, but, it's midnight where we're at, so we're tired. But, any last thoughts on Daredevil? I almost said Deadpool.
Uh, no.
No.
Those were all my
So
thoughts.
we'll be back with season 2. Who knows when? Because Disney said, or Marvel said, nope, no more Netflix. So still watch Daredevil if you want to keep going. You still have about 2 weeks to do it. We unfortunately are going to be pivoting to something else. I mean, not unfortunately. It's fortunate for y'all if you like listening to us. We are going to do something else. But unfortunate that we have to like break up the Deadpool watching here, or sorry, Daredevil watching. But Daredevil, we will talk about it once those seasons go to either Hulu or Disney Plus. But next week we are back with Avengers Movie Club. And this Avengers Movie Club, what we do is we take an actor from the MCU, typically an Avenger. That's why it's called Avengers Movie Club. And we look at 3 of their movies outside of the MCU, and we just kind of look at their body of work, because they are not just pigeonholed to one studio or one franchise. They do other things. And one actor has been in the limelight because there's a rumor he might be hosting the Oscars. There's a rumor he is in the highest, well, this is not a rumor, but he is in the highest grossing movie of the year last year. He is Mr. Tom Holland. He also has a new movie coming out this weekend, which is Uncharted, which is why we did this, because we wanted to see Uncharted. And I'm not an Uncharted expert in terms of the video game, so I feel like doing my
Mm,
own review for my channel would not suffice. So I figured, why
mm.
not rope this into a movie club and we could talk about it together and just our first impressions. So we will be talking about Uncharted. We'll be talking about 2 of his other movies, The Impossible from 2011 or 2012, it might be 2013, but Baby Tom Holland. He's a little kid in it. It is a really good movie about a tsunami in Thailand that basically wipes out this resort when this Australian family is staying there, or British family. I forget what it is, but this
They're
family's
f
staying there.
I
Do you
think
remember? I
the
don't know.
original family that it's based on, I think they were from Spain.
Maybe. But anyway, it's his Tom Holland's family is like separated because of the tsunami, and it's about them trying to get back together and like not succumb to their wounds and die in this tragic, tsunami event. It's a really great disaster film. I can't wait to talk about it. The second film we'll be watching is Cherry, which is actually directed by the Russo brothers. So we're seeing Russo brothers team up once again. Right? Is it the Russo brothers? I
Yes.
think so.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
Team up with Tom Holland. It's a little bit long, and I have not seen it, but I've heard very mixed things. So I'm very excited to talk about it. Yeah, we could have a very good or bad reaction. I'm thinking it might be more negative, but I don't know. And then Uncharted, which is coming out this weekend, so go check it out in theaters. We will do spoilers for it, so we will warn you when we get there. But it's the newest movie with Mark Wahlberg based on the video game Uncharted. So 3 great movies. There are other ones we toyed around with that you can watch also just as for fun to watch more Tom Holland. Onward on Disney Plus, great animated film with him in it. The Devil All the Time, which is a movie on Netflix with him in it. A lot of great movies. Lost City of Z. There's all these movies that he's done that like it's hard to pick 3, but we're picking those 3. Chaos Walking, which Kelsey was not a fan of, that I still have not seen, that I might still watch for this just to be like in the conversation. But those 3 movies, The Impossible, Cherry, and Uncharted, we will be talking about next week for Avengers Movie Club Tom Holland edition. And then the week after, we have more trivia coming for you. We have a doubleheader. So Kelsey just won the belt match for the first ever Marvel tournament. She is the champ. So we need now people to fight their way to face her. We need people with good enough records to face her. There are 2 people now with an 0-1 record that want to fix it. One of them is JD Domash. He lost the first match to Kelsey. He was the runner-up. He came in second place, and he challenged Chad, who was helping me call the match. So we're going to see JD face off against Chad in 2 weeks on Marvelous Movie Mondays for their first win. JD's looking to get a 1-1 record. Chad's looking to get 1-0, start off his season undefeated. The winner will probably face another component later down the line. Opponent, not component. And then we're also going to have 2 newcomers, Stacy and Corey, 2 of my good friends who are in the movie Discord stratosphere. They talk a lot about movies, and they wanted to just have fun. They're there to just have fun. JD and Chad are there a little bit more for the competition side of it, but either way, it's going to be fun. We're doing a double header because it's always fun. Two is always better than one. So we're going to have two matches. They will both air on the 28th, which is the last day of the month. And then we'll be done in February, and we'll be in March. We'll figure out something to do in March. And at the end of March, we'll be in Moon Knight, and then we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. Kelsey, where can they find you? Any last words before we head into Tom Holland / trivia verse?
Amazing. You can find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You could
That's right.
follow me on TikTok at Koz13, KOZ13, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Koz Productions. Fun stuff coming bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. You can find me at the Dill Pickle Movie Network here. If you're watching on video, thank you so much. If you're listening on audio, please subscribe to the video version on YouTube. The more subscribers, the more our podcast and channel gets out there, the more you guys can enjoy our stuff more often, not just Marvel, but other stuff. Like I said, the Pickle Awards, Kelsey will be presenting an award there. That's a fun thing we do every year to honor our favorite movie or my favorite movies of the year, and you guys all get a chance to vote on those. Doing a lot of stuff on Oscar coverage. Thank you so much for all the people who watched my Oscar nomination reaction video, because it blew up, and it is. I was actually on Twitter. I was part of a compilation that someone put together of all the people who were freaking out over Kristen Stewart getting nominated, because she was not supposed to get nominated for Spencer. She was supposed to get snubbed because she got snubbed in every other award show, but then she ended up getting the Oscar nomination. So there's a compilation, and someone chose my video to be part of that 20 or so compilation. I was very happy to see it. But
Oh, nice.
thank you for watching, everyone, for that. I will bring more reaction videos to things. I think people love reaction videos, and I'm not very
Yeah.
good at them, but when I commit, I try to amp it up a little bit. So
No, but I
I'll be
watched
doing a
that
little
one,
bit
Dill.
more of those. But yeah, you can find me at Dylan Randazzo 417 on TikTok, also, where I put a little snippet of those reactions. I'm gonna start putting more of like our stuff and mine and Chad and mine and Matt, like all our other shows and reviews and stuff on TikTok, because I think that's a good way to gain traction to the channel as well. So if you follow us there, follow us on the YouTube, on the podcast. Thank you so much. Leave us a 5-star review if you think we are worthy of it. That's all I can think of right now. Otherwise, we will see you next week for the Tom Holland Movie Club, where we will be watching The Impossible from 2013. I believe I got the right year. I don't know. The Impossible from 2013, Cherry from
It's a
2020.
2012. I Googled it.
2012. Damn. The
Close.
Impossible, Cherry, and of course Uncharted, which is coming out this weekend, which I can't wait to see, with Mark Wahlberg, and maybe we'll watch Ted just for funsies as well. Everyone, see you next time. Have a good Monday. Hope you enjoyed your Super Bowl. Happy Valentine's Day, and to all you single people like me, happy Valentine's Day to you as well. We are not forgetting about you. Yeah, Kelsey's
Self-love.
holding up the heart. There we go. All right, peace out, people. Bye.